Whispers by the Grave. Part 3.
Jonah lived on the edge of Barham, past the narrow river bridge and into the thinning woods. Caleb biked there fast, keeping his eyes low to avoid catching any reflections in car mirrors, puddles, even windows. By the time he arrived, the sun was already dipping below the trees. Twilight draped the sky in uneasy colors. Muted purple, dying gold, streaks of bleeding red. Jonah was waiting at the porch. His face looked pale and tight, like someone who had forgotten how to sleep. "I didn't think you'd actually come," Jonah said. "I couldn't stay home," Caleb replied. "Not with them there." Jonah nodded. "They came here too." Inside, the house was dim, curtains drawn. The cracked mirror Jonah had mentioned lay shattered in a trash bag in the corner, wrapped in 3 layers of towels. Caleb noticed a strange smell in the air, burnt metal and old wood. "You smell that?" he asked. Jonah nodded. "Started last night. I think they're marking places." "For what?" Jonah looked away. "Claiming them." They sat on the floor of Jonah's room, flashlight between them, the cracked mirror between their knees. "Why do you still have it?" Caleb asked. "I don't know," Jonah said. "Feels like we're supposed to." They stared at the broken glass, its jagged surface reflecting slivers of light in disjointed directions. No faces this time, no eyes. But Caleb could feel the weight of them, hovering just behind the veil of vision. He pulled out his sketchbook. Jonah raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "I started drawing them," Caleb murmured. "They come clearer after I dream." He flipped through the pages, dozens of faces, shadows, symbols. One page made Jonah go still. "Back up." Caleb turned the page back. A sketch of a tree, bent, twisted, with exposed roots reaching like claws toward a stone circle beneath it. "I've seen that tree," Jonah said. "It's near the west end of the cemetery. But the stones are gone now. My mom said they bulldozed that whole section 10 years ago." "Agatha took me there," Caleb said. "It's where the silence broke." "The silence?" Caleb tapped the sketch. "They weren't buried in graves. They were sealed, forgotten, buried in silence." Jonah stared. "And we unsealed them." "No," Caleb said. "My grandfather did, and I woke them up. That night they tried to sleep. They didn't. Instead, they lay side by side on the floor, surrounded by salt and broken glass, waiting. At 2:33 a.m., Caleb began whispering in his sleep. Jonah watched, heart thudding, as Caleb's lips moved, slowly, rhythmically. He leaned in closer. The words were not in English, not in any language Jonah knew. Then Caleb stopped breathing. Jonah shouted his name, no response. He shook Caleb, still nothing. Then Caleb's eyes snapped open and Jonah screamed. Because they were not Caleb's eyes, the whites had turned black, not like ink, like void. Darkness stared out from inside his skull. Then Caleb whispered, "He remembers the pit," and passed out. He woke at sunrise, gasping. Jonah sat in the corner, pale as a sheet. You weren't you," he whispered. "I dreamed," Caleb said. "I saw the pit." "What pit?" "The real grave." Jonah leaned forward. "I need to show you something." They went to Jonah's basement. Behind a stack of paint cans and tarps was an old filing cabinet. Inside, a folder marked Cemetery Development Archive, 1981. "My grandfather worked for the city council," Jonah said. "He kept everything." Inside the folder were old maps of the cemetery. One section stood out. Zone 4, restricted, marked with a red X, labeled unstable ground, do not disturb. "It's where that tree is," Jonah whispered. They went there just before sunset. No one followed, but Caleb felt eyes watching them from the trees. The grass grew differently here, yellowed, brittle. The air felt thicker, harder to breathe. In the center stood the old tree, still bent, still scarred by rot and time. Beneath it, the ground was sinking. A wide depression circled the base like a wound. Jonah stepped forward. "Do you feel that?" Caleb nodded. His ears rang. His fingertips itched. Then they saw it. A piece of stone, jutting from the soil, one of the buried circle markers. They began to dig. It didn't take long. A few inches down, they uncovered the full stone, etched with ancient symbols, nearly erased by erosion and time. In the center, an open eye, but what chilled them was what lay beneath it. A hatch, wooden, rotted, bound by rusted iron. They looked at each other. Jonah's hands shook. "You don't think—" "I dreamed of this," Caleb said. He reached for the hatch, pulled. It opened with a long, groaning creak, and beneath, a pit of bones, not skeletons, fragments, shattered pieces of dozens, maybe hundreds of bodies. Each face still clung to a piece of the skull, some with their eyes removed, some with their mouths sewn shut, and in the center something darker. A black stone altar covered in dried blood, and at its base, a mirror. A perfectly polished, unbroken mirror. "How are you?" He reached for the hatch, pulled. It opened with a long, groaning creak, and beneath, a pit of bones, not skeletons, fragments, shattered pieces of dozens, maybe hundreds of bodies. Each face still clung to a piece of the skull, some with their eyes removed, some with their mouths sewn shut. And in the center, something darker, a black stone altar covered in dried blood, and at its base, a mirror, a perfectly polished, unbroken mirror. "I hated him," Caleb said. "My grandfather. I never said it, but I did, because he left us. He was cold, harsh. He told me to shut up when I cried at Grandma's funeral. Told me grief was weakness." The witnesses tilted their heads slightly. Caleb stepped closer to the altar. "And the worst part? I started becoming like him. Closed, silent, bitter. After he died, I thought I'd feel free, but I didn't. I felt hollow." He placed both hands on the stone. "I'm not afraid of death. I'm afraid of becoming a memory like his, one that poisons the people who remember me." His voice broke. "I don't want to be a silent grave." The mirror cracked with a noise so sharp and unnatural that it seemed to echo not just in the air, but inside Caleb's bones. Then, silence. Complete. Not just quiet. The absence of sound. No wind. No breath. No heartbeat. Jonah's lips were moving, but no noise came out. The world had been muted. Then the pit breathed. A deep, slow inhale that pulled the surrounding air inward like a black hole. The bones shifted. The altar vibrated, and from the center of the mirror, though now shattered, a hand began to press through the glass. Pale, translucent. Skin pulled thin over wiry fingers. Jonah screamed. No sound. Caleb stumbled backward. The hand grasped the altar and began to pull. Someone was climbing out of the mirror. But before it could fully emerge, Caleb grabbed Jonah's arm and ran. They didn't speak, couldn't. Only once they crossed the cemetery gate did sound return, like a dam bursting. Crickets, wind, a dog barking in the distance. Jonah collapsed to his knees, gasping. "What? What the hell was that?" Caleb turned, heart pounding. The mirror, the hand, the thing. "Something was waking up," he whispered. "Something they buried." Jonah looked up, eyes wide. "You saw him. Your grandfather. He was part of it." Caleb nodded. "I think he was one of them." That night, Caleb found an old box in his closet. It had been his grandfather's, he remembered that much. Inside were clippings, yellowed newspapers, photos. One headline stood out: "Local boy found dead at cemetery gate. Mouth sewn shut, Barham Times, 1972. Another: city cancels expansion of West Cemetery. No official reason given." And then a torn page from a handwritten journal. "We made the pact at dusk. The soil accepted the offering. We were told to forget, but it never forgot us." There were 4 names: Samuel Ryden, Victor Halbrook, Elliot Carver, Dale Finch. 3 of them were crossed out. Only Samuel's name remained uncrossed. But a red ring had been drawn around it, and beneath it, written in rough, panicked ink, "Blood owes blood." The next day, Caleb returned to Agatha. He found her digging again, bare hands, cracked nails, muttering. "They came through the glass," he said. She nodded, slow and stiff. "You opened the pack's eye." "Packed?" Agatha looked up, her face tired, almost defeated. "They called them the witnesses, ancient things, not demons, not spirits, instruments. They collect memory, they feed on guilt. And they were bound to this place by an agreement made in fear." Caleb's hands trembled. My grandfather made the pact. Agatha nodded. He was the last one. The others died trying to break it. He sealed them again, but barely. It cost him everything. I saw him in the mirror. Then he is part of them now. Agatha placed a hand on Caleb's shoulder. There's only one way to silence the witnesses. Destroy the mirror, Caleb asked. Agatha shook her head. You can't destroy what reflects memory, but you can rewrite it. How? She looked at him hard. You must return to the altar, alone, and place something in the pit that the witnesses have never seen before. Like what? A willing sacrifice, not of blood, of truth. You must tell them a memory so personal, so real, that they choke on it. Then they'll retreat. But I don't know what to say. Agatha smiled, bitter. You will, when you're ready. Jonah didn't like the plan. You're going back alone? Are you out of your mind? They want me, Caleb said. They won't stop until I face them. But what if they don't listen? What if they pull you in? What if they take your face like your grandfather? Caleb looked at his friend with tired eyes. Then seal the pit. Jonah's voice cracked. I'm not letting you die. You might have to. That evening, Caleb returned to the pit. The hatch stood open, the mirror still cracked, but no longer glowing. The altar waited. He climbed down slowly, the air colder with every step. When he reached the bottom, they were already there. The witnesses, 12 figures, masked and motionless, surrounding the circle. No faces, no breathing, just presence. He stepped forward. I'm here, he said. They didn't move. But I'm not giving you my eyes. I'm giving you my truth. He took a breath and spoke. I hated him. The witnesses moved, for the first time slowly, inward, closer. But they didn't grab him. They listened. And the mirror, though cracked, began to pulse with light. Soft at first, then blinding. And in that moment, Caleb saw them. Not as monsters, but as echoes. Children buried without names. Women burned as witches. Men who died screaming in rooms no one heard. All forgotten. And in sharing his truth, he remembered them, and they let go. The light vanished. The witnesses were gone. The altar crumbled, and the mirror, shattered, fully, irreparably. Caleb collapsed to the floor, sobbing. But for the first time, they weren't tears of fear. They were his own. When he returned above, Jonah was waiting. He rushed forward. You're alive, Caleb smiled weakly. Barely. Jonah looked at the pit. Is it over? I don't know, Caleb said. But I think, they heard me. He looked back at the tree. It no longer leaned. It stood tall, straight, alive. That night, Caleb slept without dreams. No whispers, no watchers, just silence. Real silence. And in the morning, the mirror in his room reflected only one thing. Himself. 1 week passed. No whispers, no shadows, no hands clawing from the ground. Caleb had started to believe the horror was behind him. He walked to school again. He smiled at his mother without forcing it. He even stood in front of a mirror for 5 full minutes and saw nothing but himself. He was beginning to feel real again. But that's the thing about trauma. It doesn't knock anymore. It just walks in when the door is slightly open. It began with a photograph, an old family album buried under winter clothes in the closet. He hadn't touched it in years. He wasn't even sure why he pulled it out. Something just told him to. The pages smelled like time, faded ink, old perfume, mildew. And then he found it, a photo of his grandfather, smiling, but not in the usual stern, forced way. He looked genuinely happy, and beside him stood a man Caleb had never seen before. Except he had, in the mirror, one of the watchers. Only now, he wore a name tag. Dr. Dale Finch. Caleb's blood went cold. He flipped to the back of the photo. A date, October 17th, 1981, a single line scribbled in black ink. The blood never leaves the circle. He showed Jonah the next day. Jonah frowned. Finch, wasn't he on the list from your grandfather's journal? Caleb nodded. He was one of the 4. Then why is he still smiling? He should be dead, Caleb finished. But what if he's not? Jonah blinked. What are you saying? I think the pact changed them. I think they didn't just feed the watchers. I think they became vessels. That night, Caleb had another dream. Only this time, it didn't feel like memory. It felt like warning. He was standing in front of a door, tall, iron, bound with barbed wire and bone. From the other side came a sound, soft, wet breathing, and behind him stood the 12 watchers, silent, motionless, waiting. Caleb reached for the door. His hand shook. He pushed it open. Inside, a hospital room, empty, clean, too clean, and on the bed lay a child, eyes missing, chest stitched shut, and yet it whispered. "I see you still." Caleb awoke screaming, but not in his bed. He was on the floor surrounded by crumpled pages and candles, none of which he remembered lighting. His journal was open in front of him, filled with strange markings, symbols, glyphs. Blood was smeared on his fingers. He looked at the wall. Someone, or something, had drawn a circle in red. Inside it, the word return. He called Agatha the next morning, but her phone didn't ring. He biked to the edge of the cemetery where her shack stood. It was empty. No signs of a struggle. No signs of her at all, except for one thing. A single black candle burning in the middle of the floor. No wick, no smoke, just flame. Impossible. And on the walls, carvings, hundreds of them. All of them the same symbol from Caleb's journal. The eye. Jonah wanted to go to the police, but Caleb knew better. "No one would believe us," he said. "They'll just think she ran away." "So what do we do?" Caleb looked down at the photo again, at Dale Finch, and this time he noticed something else. A logo on the badge clipped to his coat. Varham Psychiatric Research. He searched online. The facility had closed decades ago, but the building still stood, just 10 miles out of town. They went that night. The building rose like a carcass from the hills. 3 stories tall, windows shattered, vines crawling across the brick like veins. The front door creaked open with barely a touch. Inside, the air was heavy with mold and decay. Old furniture lay broken in corners. Folders littered the floor like dead leaves. It felt wrong. Not haunted, just watched. In the main hallway they found it, a sealed room. Door bolted with a rusted chain. On the wall beside it, a plaque. Dr. Dale Finch, Restricted Memory Studies. Jonah stared. "You think he kept records?" Caleb nodded. They broke the chain with a crowbar and pushed open the door. Inside, darkness, but not emptiness. Something waited in that room. Something alive. It was an archive. Shelves lined with boxes, tapes, photographs. Caleb lit his phone flashlight and stepped inside. On the back wall, a mural, drawn in ash. 12 masked faces in a circle. And in the center, a boy, bound in roots, eyes sewn shut, mouth open in a scream. And beneath, one word, host. Jonah found a projector and slid in one of the tapes. Static, then video, flickering black and white, a chair in a white room, a child strapped down, and Dr. Finch, voice calm, emotionless. Subject 3 shows signs of spontaneous memory regression. Visual stimuli trigger latent images not from his own life, but from prior deaths. Another cut, the child screaming. Finch continues, "We believe the soul has become porous. The watchers leak through." Final frame, Caleb's grandfather, sitting beside Finch, both smiling, and Caleb realized they were never victims. They were engineers. They had designed the pact, not to contain the watchers, but to use them, to collect memory, to store guilt, to give eternal life to those willing to bear the silence. A cycle of spiritual debt, passed down in blood. And Caleb, he was next in line. The projector exploded, sparks flew, darkness fell again. And in the black, a voice whispered, "Now you remember." They ran. The building shook. The walls groaned like lungs inhaling. Something chased them, but made no sound. Only shadows moving faster than light. Caleb burst into the cold night, panting. He turned to Jonah. "It's not over." Jonah nodded, breathless. "Then what do we do?" Caleb looked down at his own shaking hands. His fingers were bleeding, but not from a cut, from his nails. And beneath the skin, something moved. They drove home in silence. Back at Caleb's house, another envelope waited on the porch. No stamp, just a black seal. Inside, a photo, recent. Caleb asleep in his bed. Someone had been watching, and on the back, one word scrawled in red. Soon.